some way because Nikola Jokic is that good. Now he's getting help. Now he's getting guys that fit the system absolutely perfectly. So I expect a lot of big things from this Denver Nuggets team. Hello and welcome to the Friday, September 2nd edition of the TV on Basketball podcast with your host, TV. Hope you're having a fantastic day and thank you for clicking on to watch or listen to today's episode. Before we start, I do have to plug my other platforms. Remember to follow at TV on Basketball on Twitter, Facebook, Instagram, and TikTok for updates on the podcast and for other great content. If you're on YouTube, remember to like, share, subscribe, hit the notification bell so you will not miss an episode. For my podcast listeners, remember to subscribe and leave a review if you're on Apple. And for the Spotify, Anchor, or Podbean listeners, just continue to show your support in any way possible. That would be highly, highly appreciated. I have an awesome show lined up for you today. This is coming to you, I think, my first show in September. Yes, the NBA season is coming up. I'm getting super, super excited. But what's even more exciting is that there was a massive trade that went down yesterday, so we're going to go into a deep dive of that. And also in this episode, we're going to be going through the winners and losers of this offseason. I think the final domino was laid after yesterday's trade. So we're going to go through the winners and losers. I have about 6 or 7 winners and 6 or 7 losers. And we're going to go quickly into that one. And it's going to be an awesome episode. A lot of gigs of views on YouTube. Thank you guys for all the support. And also remember to check out all my socials if you want to see other content, because I'm definitely putting out some more TikToks. I need to do more for sure. I'm going to get on it, especially over these next few days and weeks. But yeah, this is going to be awesome content. Thank you guys for sticking around with me. But let's get right into it. We're all here for one reason, and we're all here to talk about that crazy Donovan Mitchell trade which happened yesterday on the 1st of September. Woj was the one to break not the details, but he was the one to break the trade first, saying that Donovan Mitchell was being acquired by the Cleveland Cavaliers, which honestly for me came out of nowhere, because there were little mumblings around that the Cavs were trying to put together an offer, but people were like, ain't no way they're gonna trade. They're gonna have a trade package enough for Donovan Mitchell, but they were able to pull it off. I mean, the Knicks were probably one of the front runners. Some people thought that the Heat would really try to make a big push, even the Toronto Raptors. But it was the Cleveland Cavaliers who were lurking in the shadows, maybe 1 or 2 reports here and there, but they actually pulled off the deal, in which they sent first-round pick this year, Abachi. You had Colin Sexton, who then signed a 4-year, $72 million deal with the Jazz on the sign-and trade, and also Lauri Markkanen, along with 3 unprotected first-round picks in 2025, 2027, and 2029, and 2 pick swaps in 2026 and 2028. Man, crazy trade. Honestly, we knew a Donovan Mitchell trade was happening, but to the Cleveland Cavaliers, honestly, has got me super hyped. And starting from the Cavs side of things, if I had to give him a grade for this trade, I would give them a straight A. A straight A for this trade. I really did think it was a really good move from them. Yes, they had to give up a lot of unprotected picks along with 2 pick swaps, but they kept the young core together in Garland, Mobley, Jared Allen. They didn't even have to really give up Isaac Okoro. They still have, some guys on their bench, and Ricky Rubio, Kevin Love, Jetty Osman, all those type of guys. Karis LeVert's still on that team as well. I think that they gave up pieces that they weren't super attached to, and they were able to turn it into a perennial all-star in Donovan Mitchell. I mean, look, Lauri Markkanen was great for them last year. I think people were very surprised that 7-foot lineup worked, and Markkanen was a big part of it due to his great floor spacing. Sexton, they weren't looking to extend him anyways. I mean, he is a very light version of Donovan Mitchell, so upgrading him to the sure thing in Spida, I think, was a good deal. And the only one that really sucks here is Ochai Agbaji. I thought he was going to be a really good piece for them, a nice 3-and-D piece, maybe helping out Isaac Okoro with his lack of offensive capabilities. But you're going to have to give something away in order to get someone elite like Donovan Mitchell, and he was a casualty in this. But I think that the Cavs really did a good job not trading, just trading pieces that they weren't super attached to. They're keeping up the guys who, are locked into their core, and now adding Donovan Mitchell to this team, I think it's very, very nice. Now, is a 6-1 backcourt troublesome of him and Darius Garland? Yes, it is kind of troublesome, especially on the perimeter defense side of things. But what is great about the Cleveland Cavaliers is that, man, they have a strong backline there of Isaac Okoro, Evan Mobley, and Jared Allen. I mean, sure, you can get past Darius Garland, sure you can get past Donovan Mitchell, but when you have to go up against those defensive beasts afterwards, not a lot of people are gonna want to drive in there. So I think they have a really good setup there. And really, one of the problems I saw last year, especially in the playing games with this Cleveland Cavalier team, is their lack of offensive creativity. Yes, Darius Garland is great. He's going to be a multiple-time All-Star for years to come, possibly an All-NBA level guard. But he just didn't have enough perimeter help. Karis LeVert would give him something here and there. Colin Sexton was out with injuries, so that offensive weapon was gone. Now you bring in Donovan Mitchell, who has proven that he can do that on an elite level on a playoff stage. I think it's a really good trade for the Cleveland Cavaliers. And look, it is a risk. You're giving away 3 unprotected first-round picks and 2 pick swaps, and you really don't know what your roster is going to look like in 2026, 2027, and so on and so forth. But it was a risk they needed to pull off. I'm surprised they even went for this risk, especially with how young their core is. But it makes sense. Donovan Mitchell is not an old guy. He is 25, turning 26 in a couple weeks. He fits the timeline. He really does. I mean, him, Garland in the backcourt, that's going to be lethal offensively. Donovan Mitchell doesn't have to have the ball 100% of the time, and that Garland is great at creating his own shot and for others. And then you got, just solid defensive beasts over there in the interior. Great lob threats for both Garland and for Mitchell to throw day in, day out. I think it was a really good trade for the Cavs. The wing position is kind of suspect. I mean, you got people like Okoro, you got Karis LeVert, you got Jetty Osman. Solid players, but nothing really that you want to you're gonna be like, you know what, this guy is gonna be a staple in that small forward position. They don't, but I think they can maybe work on that in the upcoming years. But I think this trade really established the Cavs in that second tier in the East as well. I think it's really good. You got the Bucks and the Celtics. Oh, of course, I'm covering the top part, but I think you can almost say that they could be a 50-win team in the mix with the 76ers, with the Miami Heat, with the who even knows with the Brooklyn Nets at this point? The Atlanta Hawks as well. The Cavs have really solidified themselves with them, with that, with this trade, and solidified themselves with those level of teams. So I'm very excited. I am very excited to see what this Cavs team is going to do. You're going to have a full training camp with Donovan Mitchell to get in with that core to see how they work together. Very good trade for the Cleveland Cavaliers. I give it an A grade, 100%. And then for the Utah Jazz side of things. Honestly, the package they got back was really good. The Utah Jazz, to the point where people were saying, the Jazz almost fleeced the Cleveland Cavaliers. I don't agree with that, but the Jazz really did get a lot of pieces in return. Of course, Ochai Agbaji, a first-round pick this year. It's kind of like how they did with Rudy Gobert when they brought in Walker Kessler from the Minnesota Timberwolves. Both guys, you could consider them first-round picks because they were drafted this year. They haven't played a game in the NBA yet, but they also brought in, again, a light version of Donovan Mitchell and Colin Sexton on a team-friendly deal. 4 years, $72 million, I think is pretty solid for him, especially knowing that he has a capability of scoring 20 every night. Hopefully he could stay healthy. And you have someone in Lauri Markkanen who is still in his early to mid-20s, could be a part of your future. I'm not going to say that this team is going to keep the Jazz competitive, but it's not a horrible team, You still got Sexton, you still got Agbaji, Lauri Markkanen, Jared Vanderbilt, and some rookies over there. I think it's not the worst thing in the world for the Utah Jazz. I mean, it's enough to kind of sell tickets, to flash the idea to the Utah Jazz fans, you could still watch our team this year. But of course, the main thing they got here in return was the picks, was the pick swaps. Just really, really good. And was going through the Woj tweets and Shams tweets yesterday. From now until 2029, the Jazz have 13 unprotected or likely protected first-round picks, which is really, really good, knowing that you're in the middle of a rebuild. It's a Danny Ainge special. I mean, he was able to do this with the Boston Celtics, getting rid of Paul Pierce, Kevin Garnett, Ray Allen, all that old core, and he ended up with a Jason Tatum, Jaylen Brown core, which is amazing for now. He's kind of going into the same mode with the Utah Jazz. The results are not going to come until the next 4 or 5 years, or the next 3 to 4 or 5 years, something around there. But this is the teardown stage. And they got a lot of draft capital. They got a lot of young players. And they're not done yet. They are not done. They still got to trade Mike Conley. They still got to trade Bojan Bogdanovic. And they still got to trade Jordan Clarkson, who I think all of those guys have some significant value on the market. Get a couple of second-round picks there, some protected first-round picks over here. And they're going to get a war chest of draft capital. Maybe not to the level of the OKC Thunder yet, because, man, they have built that chest for a while now. But they're starting to build that. And the Jazz are finally, like, formulating a plan that is like past the Donovan Mitchell, Rudy Gobert era. And we all know that has run its course. We've been waiting for this to happen, and it finally has happened. But I think it is a good trade for the Utah Jazz. Got a lot of picks in return, got some young pieces. And yes, it's going to be a tough year for the next, 2 to 3 years for you Utah Jazz fans, 100%. But if Sexton can turn out to be a good player, that's great for you. And if you can convert some of these other guys to get more first-round picks, maybe some more young guys that can help your team in the future, that'd also be great. But at the end of the day, you're going to be bad. They're going to be tagging for the next couple of years, so hopefully you get, some top picks. Maybe get a Scoot Henderson this year or Victor Wembanyama. Whoever they get in the next couple of years, we have to wait and see. But the idea of this trade and just the assets they were able to get in return for Donovan Mitchell, I think is really good for the Utah Jazz. Now, this compared to what the offer that they were given in July from the New York Knicks, which involved Mitchell Robinson, Obi Toppin, and RJ Barrett, along with 2 first-round picks, that is a bit of a question mark there as well. I would go with that trade, but I also get the idea of going with this, still getting some players, but also just a bunch more draft capital. So I think it's a great trade for the Jazz. And just the Cavs coming on this upcoming season, I'm just really excited to see where they're going to go with this. Again, it's gonna be a very offensive heavy backcourt for sure. But if they can just give you a little bit more effort on that end, especially now that Donovan Mitchell again doesn't have the ball 100% of the time, and you still get elite defensive play from the guys in the front court, I think it's gonna work out really well. I'm excited to see how things develop with this team, and just excited for the East in general. And we're gonna go into the winners and losers of the NBA offseason. Man, the East is looking good. The East is looking good, and the Cavs are really solidifying their place over here. But yeah, let me know down below, what are your thoughts on the Donovan Mitchell trade? I think this is a trade that really benefits both teams. Some people say it might lean one way or the other. Some people think that the Cavs gave up too much, but let me know what your thoughts are down below. Now moving on to the next portion of this episode, and we're going to be talking about the winners and losers of the NBA offseason. I was waiting for the Donovan Mitchell trade to happen to really put out this video, and luckily it came in early September. So we're going to go through the winners and losers. I have about, 6 winners, 6 losers, and we're going to go into them into depth. And yeah, we're going to just talk about some of the big moves that happened in the offseason, because I haven't really been posting about that. Talked about the top 10 players a few weeks ago in the NBA currently, and last week was the top 10 players of all time. So now we're going to go more into this offseason basketball, and I'm going to start by giving my thoughts. Let's start with a winner. We're going to go with a winner, then we're going to go loser, winner, loser, all that type of good stuff. Well, let's start positive. Let's start with a winner, and we're going to talk about the Philadelphia 76ers as a winner of the offseason. Now, what I like about what the 76ers did was, one, they brought back James Harden on a team-friendly deal. It was like a 4-year, $120 million. Yes, it's still like $30 million a year, but they were able to lower down James Harden's contract and bring in some pretty good, bench pieces for them coming forward for this upcoming season. I mean, they still have their core and Tyrese Maxey, Joel Embiid, Tobias Harris, and all that, but then they really improved their bench. Or even the starting lineup, if they want to start some of these guys. They got PJ Tucker from the Miami Heat, who you already know he's just going to help with that identity 100%. They brought in Daniel House, a three-point sniper who was on the Knicks team a couple years ago, was on the Jazz last year. He could be a nice piece for them off the bench. And they also brought in D'Anthony Melton on draft night, trading away, I think it was like a late first-round pick or like a second-round pick or something. Really, really good, because D'Anthony Melton was one of the better backup point guards last year in the NBA, playing for the Memphis Grizzlies, backing up John Morant. And now he's here with the Philadelphia 76ers, just a steady hand off the bench, someone who can facilitate the basketball, create his own shot, and will play hard on the defensive end. So, yeah, the 76ers, nothing too crazy. I think their big key going into this season is hopefully trying to stay healthy, because a team with Harden, Embiid, of course, with Maxey, Tobias Harris, and then an improved bench, should be a contender in the East. But the question always remains with the 76ers, are they going to stay healthy? Who knows? But they didn't have to give up much this offseason. They made some improvements to their team. I consider them a pretty good winner in this offseason. Moving on to the losers. I wanted to go with this team first because it was another trade that the Utah Jazz did earlier this week before the Donovan Mitchell trade, and it was to this team. We're going to be talking about the Los Angeles Lakers as a loser of the NBA offseason. Now, it could change to a winner, and I'm going to go into that a bit later. But one good move, honestly, before I talk about why they're a loser of the offseason, a good move that the Lakers did make was trading away Taylor Horton-Tucker and Stanley Johnson to the Utah Jazz in exchange for Patrick Beverley. Now, Patrick Beverley on the Los Angeles Lakers, I think, is fantastic. They just needed someone who was gritty, someone who can help improve their defensive identity. I think it was a great move. Sure, they could have traded Taylor Horton-Tucker a couple years ago for Kyle Lowry, which would have made it a lot better for them probably back then. But getting Patrick Beverley is not bad. And I think, again, someone who just plays hard on the defensive end, plays with his heart on the line every single night. You need those plays on that team just so you can, it's like a effect to the rest of the guys. It's great motivation for the rest of them. And another good move they made this offseason was firing Frank Vogel, bringing in Darvin Ham, a new, a player's voice in the locker room. A former player, Darvin Ham, is good. It's good. Just like having a new voice, someone who was a successful assistant there in Milwaukee. I think bring him in was a great idea. But the thing about the Los Angeles Lakers is that the problems that from last year still remain. Russell Westbrook is on the roster. We don't know how this whole thing is going to work with him, Anthony Davis, LeBron, and now Patrick Beverley, who they've had a long-standing rivalry for almost a decade now. You have that going on, so that's still kind of iffy. You don't the bench is still kind of iffy as well. I'm not a huge fan of the bench that the Lakers have. I mean, they brought in Thomas Bryant, they brought in Lonnie Walker. I mean, they're okay, but they're also young, they're also inexperienced. Just not a huge fan of their offseason moves, really. But, like I mentioned earlier, this could turn to a positive. If they're able to move Russell Westbrook to the Indiana Pacers in exchange for Buddy Hield and Miles Turner, then this loser label I'm giving them will turn to a winner. If they're able to pull off that trade before the season starts, I'm a lot more comfortable in a lineup that involves Beverley, Hield, LeBron, Anthony Davis, and Miles Turner. I'm a lot more comfortable with that than having Russell Westbrook in the starting lineup. Again, no disrespect to Russ. He just needs a change of scenery. I just do not think anything was going to work in LA. It didn't really. He just needs to find a new place, and maybe just him choosing that place after being bought up by the Pacers would just be that fresh start that he is looking for. But as of right now, I still have to give him the loser label. I'm just not really hopeful for this team going into the season. Will it get better? I mean, they didn't make the playoffs last year. It should get better as long as these guys stay relatively healthy. But I'm just still not very hopeful. I'm just not hopeful in this team. If they prove me wrong early on in the season, fair play. But I just do not have a lot of hope with the roster currently constructed. Just a lot of question marks with this team. I mean, Austin Reeves is probably going to start. Undrafted player from last year. I mean, he's a solid role player. And I wouldn't mind him coming off the bench. But him in an NBA starting lineup for a team with championship aspirations, iffy. Iffy for sure. So yeah, that's why I have the Lakers as a loser of the NBA offseason. Next winner, I'm not gonna go too far into this because I talked a lot about them earlier, but the Cleveland Cavaliers. They were able to convert guys that they weren't solidified pieces in their core, and they converted it into a perennial all-star in Donovan Mitchell. I mean, if you just look at their lineup, Garland, a first-time All-Star this year, Jared Allen, first-time All-Star, Donovan Mitchell, three-time All-Star. Evan Mobley, this guy looks so good to be an all-world talent if you just give him years to develop. You got 4 potential All-Stars in your starting lineup. Potential All-Stars, I'll say that for sure. But just the idea of that, and plus the great mix of offense and defense, really gives me a lot of hope for this Cavs team going forward. And again, the wings are an issue, but I think that can be addressed either, before the season, maybe going into this next year or two. But I'm just really excited for this Cavs team. They just got to stay healthy. Last year, their whole Season was derailed because of injuries to all their key players. I mean, Darius Garland had an injury. Jared Allen late in the season. Evan Mobley missed some significant time. If these guys can stay healthy and have like these guys all on the court for long periods of time, I think the sky's the limit for this team, and I'm just really excited to see how they're going to do this upcoming season. Pulling off this trade, man, makes the Cavs a massive, massive winner of the NBA offseason. Again, just really excited to see what they're able to do in the next couple of years. Going back to the losers, and we're going to be talking about the Phoenix Suns. Phoenix Suns, I believe, they're still going to be a top team in the West. I'm not going to doubt that, especially with a core of Devin Booker, Chris Paul. You still got Mikal Bridges there, Jay Crowder, DeAndre Ayton, Cam Johnson. I just think it's a really good roster. It's the same from the last couple of years, but they were really hoping to trade away DeAndre Ayton, which they weren't able to do. They just ended up matching the Pacers' offer. The drama could still be there. I don't know if it's going to linger into the next season. Who knows? I still think they're a really good team, but they lost a good backup center in JaVale McGee and replaced him basically with Jake Long. I think it's Jake Longdale or Jock. It's Jock Longdale, whatever. I just think the problems are still going to linger. Chris Paul is a year older, which that means he's not really going to get much better. It's just like the Suns are here. The other teams in the West are getting better around them, mostly because of injuries coming back. I mean, you have the Clippers having Paul George and Kawhi Leonard healthy at the start of the season. You're going to have the Denver Nuggets having Jamal Murray and Michael Porter back from injury. And the Suns really haven't made moves to kind of, keep themselves to stay aggressive and keep themselves in that top echelon of the West. Will they be there at the end of the season? Maybe. But I just don't think they made aggressive enough moves in order to, keep themselves like that. And again, we just don't know how the start of the season is going to go. DeAndre Ayton is still going to be frustrated coming into this season. Who knows? Especially because, the Suns could have offered him a 5-year contract this season prior, which they didn't. The whole blow up at the end of that Dallas Mavericks series. Will this carry over to the next season? Who knows? But the Suns, I still think, are in a good position, but also can they really maintain themselves near the top? Especially with all the teams in the West just getting better. You have the defending champions there in the Golden State Warriors as well. The Timberwolves getting better. Who knows? But the Suns, I just think that just them not making moves makes them a loser of the offseason so far. Moving on to another winner, to talking about the Suns competition, we have to talk about the Denver Nuggets. And I really like what they did this offseason. I mean, they did lose Monte Morris and Will Barton, but I think they really did help out their defensive identity by bringing in someone like a Bruce Brown. I mean, he was a key piece to the Brooklyn Nets last year, who played hard 100% of the time, which I really did appreciate from him. And they also brought in KCP. I mean, people might not see KCP as a massive, massive asset, but he is a very good 3-and-D wing. Very, very good. And then you pair him with a Jamal Murray, with Aaron Gordon, Michael Porter Jr., and Nikola Jokic in the starting lineup. I think he just slots in absolutely perfectly. He doesn't need the ball in order to be effective. He could play hard on the defensive end. He could be a great catch-and-shoot player. It just fits the team perfectly. And then Bruce Brown off the bench, maybe he can, finish a lot of games as well with just his defensive effort and his tenacity and stuff like that. You have that, including, improving players like Bones Highland. You have still Aaron Gordon on that team, Jeff Green on that team. Hopefully maybe someone like Najee gets more minutes coming into this year. I just see a lot of, just guys that just kind of fit the system. Plus you bring in, plus you're getting a healthy Jamal Murray at the start of the season, a healthy Michael Porter Jr., and you have the 2-time reigning MVP Nikola Jokic. Feeling very, very happy about this team. Very, very excited going into next season. And this is where the Nuggets really get to show the true colors. They were a top 5, top 6 seed the last 2 years, and somehow, some way, because Nikola Jokic is that good. Now he's getting help. Now he's getting guys that fit the system absolutely perfectly. So I expect a lot of big things from this Denver Nuggets team. Very, very excited to see where they're going to go from here. But, yeah, this Denver Nuggets team is going to be really, really good. And I think they're a winner just because they're getting healthy. And they're just bringing in people that will be a part of their rotation. I think will provide some good minutes for them. Next, for the losers, Another team that really hasn't made much moves this offseason, and it's the Miami Heat. I almost said Miami Heat. Miami Heat. And the thing about the Miami Heat is they still have a good roster for sure. They got Kyle Lowry. Hopefully he's healthy. He's going to play better this upcoming season. They re-signed Victor Oladipo. They still have Jimmy Butler, Tyler Hero, Duncan Robinson, Bam Adebayo. It's the same roster basically as last year. The only difference is really they drafted Nikola Jovic. They brought it. They re-signed Victor Oladipo. It's more than just basically the same roster from last year. Honestly, but they didn't really make improvements to that team. And I mentioned the Cavs earlier. I mentioned the Hawks earlier. The East around them is getting better, and the Heat have just not made any improvements really. These guys are getting a year older in terms of Jimmy Butler and Kyle Lowry, and none of these moves. I mean, they were hoping to get Donovan Mitchell. They weren't able to pull that trade off. They were hoping maybe another star would ask for a trade so they can bring in. Maybe they were thinking maybe Bradley Beal early on in this offseason. None of those things happen. And honestly, they lost PJ Tucker, who was a massive part of their identity last year. So, sure, they're going to have a great coach in Eric Spoelstra for sure. They still have that really good core with Lowry, Jimmy Butler, Bam Adebayo, Tyler Hero. I think that's going to be good enough to carry them throughout most of the season. But they downgraded their roster. Maybe you get a better version of Victor Oladipo after a full year of just training for basketball, not worrying have to do with rehab. But still, they lost PJ Tucker, a big part of their identity, and all their guys are getting older. I mean, this is a worse team than last year. And the Miami Heat are always about trying to stay at the top, stay relevant, try and keep themselves in championship contention. They might still, who knows? But at the same time, the competition is getting much, much better in the Eastern Conference. And the Miami Heat have stayed idle, which is very, very rare for them. There's always maybe that one or two moves that they would make, but they haven't done it. So I still think they're going to be maybe a top 4, top 5 seed in the East. But at this point, with the question marks surrounding the Atlanta Hawks, maybe they might jump them. Maybe the Cavaliers might jump them. Who knows? There's a lot of competition out there, and the Heat haven't made changes to kind of keep up with the changes in the East. So yes, I would have to give them a loser of the NBA offseason. 3 more minutes we have left, and again, this one should take pretty short. I'm going to talk about the Utah Jazz. Once again, they did the 2 trades for Donovan Mitchell and Rudy Gobert, but they are 100% a winner of the offseason. They just got a massive haul from their 2 stars, and they're still not done yet. They have some veterans there they have to get rid of, like I mentioned earlier, with Jordan Clarkson, Bogdanovich, and Mike Conley. They're not done yet, and they have a pretty nice young roster right now. I mean, it's not a great young core, but again, just a bunch of draft picks should be really good for them coming to next season. They got Malik Beasley. They got Taylor Horn-Tucker this offseason. Some nice young guys there. They still, of course, they got Ochai Agbaji, Lauri Markkanen, Jared Vanderbilt, Colin Sexton. They have some nice young players there, and whether they want to trade them away for more draft assets or they want to, have these guys develop as part of their core and hopefully they see them as part of their future later on, I think it's pretty good. And plus, again, 13 draft picks, likely protected or unprotected, from now to 2029. Really, really good. They can build more assets as the season goes on. I think it's a nice haul that they got for their 2 stars. And look, like I mentioned earlier, it's going to be a rough next couple of years, but Danny Ainge is doing a great job just getting assets and young players like he did with the Boston Celtics back in the mid-2010s. This is the tear down that the Jazz needed, and so far so good. It's looking really good so far. They just have to continue to build that chest of draft assets, chest of young players, and in the next couple of years, they might get lucky in the lottery, draft some of the top prospects, and they're going to be back in the mix in the Western Conference in no time. But right now, Jazz fans, just stick with the program. It's going to be a rough next couple of years for you guys for 100%. Another loser of this NBA offseason, I would like to say, is the New York Knicks. And it really isn't anything horrible they did this offseason. Well, one, they didn't pull off the Donovan Mitchell trade. Knicks fans are really pissed about that. But I just think that their L's in this offseason really, especially with the Donovan Mitchell thing, really go back to last season when they signed Evan Fournier to a long-term contract. Noel to a long-term contract, Alec Burks to a long-term contract. Those things are hurting them right now. And sure, they got rid of Alec Burks, they got rid of Noel, but Evan Fournier is still on that roster, and just looking up and down the roster they have right now, not that great. The East again is getting better, and I'm not sure if I can even move the Knicks out of that fourth tier right now. Are they like on the same level as the Raptors? Maybe the Cavs, the Hawks, the Heat. Like, I don't think they're even close to that level yet. And look, they made some solid signings. I mean, Isaiah Hartenstein is an underrated center. I'm glad to see. I'm glad to see that he is on a roster. Hopefully, getting some good PT here. They brought in Jalen Brunson, who that was their number one guy coming into this offseason. They were able to get him, so good on them. But still, Julius Randle, R.J. Barrett, Fournier, Brunson, and Mitchell Robinson. I mean, they got him on a good deal as well. I mean, it's not bad. But the Knicks would like to be in a better position. I mean, just 2 years ago, they were the top 4 or 5 seed in the East. And now I think they're far away from that right now, especially with the rest of the East just getting better and better. And I just don't... I mean, they weren't even a play-in team last year. I mean, sure, they can make the play-in. Is it going to get much more improvement past that? I don't think so. And you have a lot of money tied into a Randall... a core of Randall, Brunson, Barrett, and Mitchell Robinson. You have a lot of money tied into those guys, and I just don't think you're still near like the top 3 tiers in the East. Like, that's just not a good like position you want to be in. That's why I have to have them as losers here. And a lot of that, again, they traded away like Nerlens Noel and Alec Burks to the Pistons. Great, but those decisions last year are hurting this team. And they still have to just kind of deal with the consequences. They just have no really room to improve here. I think hopefully they just get better within. Maybe Julius Randle has a bounce back season. But yeah, I just don't see much improvement for this team. I have to have them as a loser of the NBA offseason. We have 2 more winners here for this episode. One of the winners being the Atlanta Hawks. I believe the Atlanta Hawks are a winner of the NBA offseason as well, just because they brought in DeJounte Murray. That was absolutely massive. I think that he is going to be an absolutely key piece for them going forward. Yes, they had to get rid of Kevin Huerter and some other young pieces as well. Looking up and down our roster, I think that the Hawks will be better this year. I don't know how long it's going to take for the backcourt of Trae Young and DeJounte Murray to kind of to adjust to one another, especially because both are very used to having the ball at their hands like 99% of the ball game. Both have near average 10 assists per game. In Trae's case, I think he has one season. But I'm really excited for this team. I think the dynamic of Murray and Young will work eventually, especially because DeJounte Murray is more a defensive guy. He can cover up for Trae's lack of defensive abilities. They still got John Collins. I don't know what's going to happen with his situation, if he's going to get traded or not. They still have Clint Capella, who's just getting older, but hopefully Onyeka Okongwu can, step into that place sooner rather than later. They still have DeAndre Hunter. They still have some young guys. I'm excited for this team. I think that they're definitely a winner of the trade deadline. Sorry, not the trade deadline, the offseason. They gave up, again, some pieces to the Spurs, but they're able to get an all-star in DeJounte Murray. I think that's just really going to help the team, especially if them being in the Eastern Conference Finals 2 years ago. They're not going to say, you know what, let's continue to just get better within. No. They know that in order to stay relevant in this East, especially this tougher East, you're going to have to make a major move. And they were able to do that in getting DeJounte. So I'm really excited for them. I think that was a really good trade for them to do. And now they're going to be aggressively in the hunt, along with those Tier 3 teams, in order to gain like a playoff spot, not trying to be in the play-in. So, the race is going to be tough. The race is going to be a tough 100%. But the Hawks made a move to try and kind of like match up with the rest of the teams in the East. So they are definitely a winner of the NBA offseason. Now for the final 2 losers, one of them, I'm gonna have to say it. It sucks because like early in the offseason they really like derailed their plans for sure. But the Charlotte Hornets are major losers of the offseason as well. The glaring issues there in that team were just not addressed. Sure, they drafted Mark Williams in the lottery. That's fine. But they still have a center rotation of him, Kai Jones, and Mason Plumlee. That need was not addressed, really. They tried trading for Miles Turner. That didn't work out and stuff like that. But I just think that they're just not going to get better this year. Obviously, the unfortunate incident with Miles Bridges means that he's probably not going to be on the roster, probably not going to be in the NBA for anytime soon. But that's a young piece that they're going to be missing now. You got LaMelo Ball, you have Terry Rozier. Hopefully, James Bouknight can get some minutes this year. But looking up and down this roster, I'm just not very hopeful. They made it to the play-in the last 2 years, got absolutely demolished in the play-in tournament, and I just don't have a lot of hope for that team. You're asking a lot out of LaMelo Ball as of right now, and I just don't think he has a good enough roster around him to produce, especially again against a growing Eastern Conference. It's just getting better there, and it's just some guys are gonna have to get kicked out of the bunch, and the Hornets might be one of those teams. I really do believe that, unless LaMelo Ball takes another step in this progression, which again would be amazing. I just don't see this team being able to compete with other teams in the East. I don't it's gonna be tough. We're gonna go into my standings predictions in the next couple weeks. I don't see the Hornets being in that top 10 as of right now. I really don't. Walking up and down the East, I'm not sure, but we're gonna have to wait and see. I don't know what other moves they could do before the season starts, but their current roster right now, not really a big fan of it. Big fan of LaMelo Ball. We don't know what's gonna happen with Gordon Hayward every single year, but we have for sure a good team there. They have a good player in LaMelo Ball. Just don't know about the rest of the team for sure. So that's why they are a loser. Now moving on to the final winner of this, and I've been focusing on the East a lot in this episode, but the fans over there on the East Coast should be extremely happy with the quality of basketball they've been getting over the course of the NBA season. Maybe except for the Toronto Raptor fans. I mean, look, the East is loaded now. For many years, it felt like the West was just the completely superior conference in terms of also players and all that. But the East, man, they're bringing in some talent. They got Donovan Mitchell over here. They brought in DeJounte Murray over here. You have that, and then you have, I'm going to tell you the playoff picture right now. I mean, you got the top two teams, of course, the Bucks and the Celtics. They're going to be near the top, the title contenders. But then you have the Bulls. You have the Brooklyn Nets. We don't know what's happening with them. The Miami Heat. The Atlanta Hawks. You have the Philadelphia 76ers. You have the Toronto Raptors. That's already 8 teams deep. And some of those teams may not even be able to make it to the playoffs because, you never know what's going to happen with the Washington Wizards now. A healthy season of Porzingis and Beal. We don't know how that's going to look like. We don't know. I mean, I didn't even mention the Atlanta Hawks. The Charlotte Hornets. Are they still going to be in the mix? The New York Knicks, they want to be competing. I mean, the 3 teams really that you just don't expect them to have fantastic seasons, and they're actually looking to tank. It's the Magic, Pistons, and Pacers. Besides that, the other 12 teams are fighting for 10 positions. So there's going to be teams left disappointed. And that means just great quality basketball out there in the East Coast. I mean, people don't have to stay late to just say, oh, now I can't watch some of the of the best players because they play in the West Coast. They're going to play super late. It's going to get better for us now. We get to see Donovan Mitchell on a daily basis. DeJounte Murray, both West guys coming over here. Just really, really exciting, especially over here in the East Coast, who watch it at 7 p.m. Eastern. We're going to have some great, great basketball to watch. Unfortunately for the Raptors, though, I mean, yes, I do believe this team is going to get better. But seeing all these teams making moves and seeing the Raptors, really trying to build from within, I mean, it's very Raptors-like. I'm not going to get mad at it. I'm not going to get mad at Nick Nurse or the moves that they made. I mean, we brought in Otto Porter Jr., Josh Jackson. Not many, crazy moves that the Raptors have made this offseason. But, man, it's the East is going to look really tough, especially competing now with a reformed, a new look Atlanta Hawks team, the new look Cleveland Cavaliers team, who we were already struggling with last season. Yeah, it's going to be a tough year out there in the East. I'm so excited for my Raptors. I mean, they usually perform over expectations anyway. But, man, it's going to be really tough to see how they're going to, it's going to be, the competition is just going to be really, really tough out there over in the Eastern Conference. But the losers are the fans who love the offseason more than NBA basketball. I mean, especially with the Kevin Durant news, we were hoping for probably one of the biggest trades in NBA history. I mean, yes, we got a good Gobert trade, Mitchell trade, DeJounte Murray trade, but the free agency class was really dead. There was no KD or Kyrie trade. Beal stayed with the Wizards. nothing really super crazy happened this offseason. I mean, there were some good like moments here and there, but the offseason, like compared to other years, definitely on the lower end scale. But at the end of the day, there's some new teams. Again, a lot more competition. I'm just excited for more NBA basketball. But I mean, there's people who love, off-season basketball. They're hoping for some more. They really didn't get it, so I have to say that they're losers of the NBA offseason as well. But man, I'm just excited for NBA basketball to come back. I think that a lot of teams have like made improvements. And I think it's going to be, like, again, another year where it's up in the air. It's not going to be, like, two teams like, oh, they're for sure making it to the finals. No. There's, like, a bunch of teams in the West that have a case. There's some teams in the East that have a case if things go their way. Should be a really, really fun season. And, man, we're finally moving past the offseason. We're going to get into season previews pretty soon. I'm excited. And look out for a lot more content coming over this September as well. But, yeah, those are my winners and losers. Did I miss anything? Let me know down below what you guys think. But I think this is where we're going to end today's episode. Thank you guys for watching and listening. Remember to show love on all the podcast channels. Like, share, and subscribe, and hit the notification bell if you're on YouTube. And remember to follow @TV on Basketball on Twitter, Facebook, Instagram, and TikTok for other great content and also updates on the podcast. Going to be back next week, possibly starting NBA, season previews and stuff like that, which should be really, really good. But I'm just like really excited for more NBA basketball, and it's going to be really, really good. Be on the lookout for more content for sure. And yeah, thank you guys for all the support that you've been giving on the TikTok, everywhere, and on the podcast. Even on YouTube, we're getting like 20 plus views these last two videos. Great to be back. Great to put out some more NBA content. But yeah, thank you guys for all the support. Hope you have a fantastic day. Take it easy, guys. T signing out. Peace.